All right, you are now live.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Russell, and I represent Lower Sackville. I'd like to call to order the Accessibility Advisory Committee for the afternoon of June 3rd. It is 4:12 p.m. This agenda is a little bit different. It happens once a year where we elect the chair and vice chair of this committee. So I'm going to lead us through electing the chair of the committee. And the general process for that is that I will ask for nominations. Once we have nominations, we'll determine if there is one or more, and then that will determine if we need an election, and then we'll hand the meeting over to whoever the successful candidate is for the chair position. So, can I please have nominations for the chair of the committee?
Could you forgive me because I would need a bit more definition of what the chair would do, just so I don't nominate myself and realize it's not something I should be chair for.
Go ahead, Elizabeth, or would you like me to work through that?
I can speak a little bit to that. So the chair leads the committee through the agenda every meeting. So there's a few different, I can definitely, I mean, if anyone would like to know a little bit more about the position, I can definitely send some more in-depth material. But basically, you would attend the agenda reviews to help set the agenda. And you, the chair, would call the meeting to order and then leads the committee through the agenda items.
I'd be interested.
Okay. So you can self-nominate as well. You just need a seconder as well.
I need a seconder. Uh-oh.
I'll second.
Okay.
So we have Celine as nominated for chair with seconded by Councillor Purdy. Are there any other nominations for the chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee? Second time, are there any other nominations for the chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee? And third and final time, are there any other nominations for the Accessibility Advisory Committee? And not hearing any further nominations, I call nomination cease, and I'm going to congratulate Celine and welcome you as the chair of the committee.
Well, thanks.
Go ahead, Elizabeth. I've probably forgotten to call for a vote.
We just need to call for the vote, follow the question, and the motion is going to be that Celine be appointed chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Would someone like to move that motion, please?
I can make that motion.
Glenn, thank you very much. Seconded by?
I'll second that. It's Rochelle.
Seconded by Rochelle. Thank you very much. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Great. At this point, I'd like to congratulate Celine. And surprise, I'm going to hand the meeting over to you. We have Annie and Elizabeth here who are able to help you out with.
Okay, yeah, because it's going to be, I promise it's going to be a little abstract today, but I'll nail it. I've just recently been trained to facilitate conversation circles, so I promise I will find my way through this.
Okay. Before I hand it over to you, I just saw a note from the deputy mayor that I forgot to acknowledge that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kmaq, the traditional and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Over to you, Celine, with support from Elizabeth and Annie.
Okay, with the support. Okay, so we just elected chair. So the second, what do you call it?
So this is going to be for the election of vice chair. So
there
either
you go.
The newly elected chair or the legislative assistant can lead the committee through that election. So I can certainly call for nominations and lead us through the election of vice chair if you would prefer.
I would prefer for to be able, because I learn really fast by watching other people do. Again, part of my disability is slowness. but I'm still pretty smart, I
absolutely.
promise. It's just I really need to see what this is, and then I'll be good at
For
this.
sure.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I can take it away then. So I
Sure.
will now open the floor for nominations for the position of vice chair for the Accessibility Advisory Committee.
This is Rochelle. I would like to self-nominate as the vice chair.
Perfect. Do we have a seconder for that?
I will
I'd love
second
to
that.
second that,
I'll
Rochelle.
second that too.
Eh,
Thanks,
Seconded by
everyone.
everybody.
That feels nice.
Okay, I will call a second time for any further nominations for the position of vice chair. And I will call a third time for any further nominations for the position of vice chair. Seeing none, nominations will cease. And we will now need a motion that Rochelle Manette, I believe, am I saying that correct? Be appointed to the position of vice chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Moved
So moved.
by Deputy Mayor,
And I will second that.
seconded by Councillor Russell. All right, we will now call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. All those opposed, please say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, perfect. I will now declare Rochelle Manette the newly elected vice chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So, congratulations. We will now move to, we have one more election to get through. It will be item 1.3, which is election of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee representative. So this person will be sitting on the Active Transportation Advisory Committee as a member and will be able to attend, or will be attending, expected to attend ATAC meetings as well. So I will now open the floor for nominations for representative to the Active Transportation Advisory Committee.
I think I'm interested in that position, even though it's my first meeting and I know nothing about it.
I can definitely, we can definitely chat after the meeting and I can fill you in a little bit. Glenn?
How often is this, like, it's on Thursdays?
So it's on a Thursday. It's the third Thursday of every month. It's also, they also meet on a monthly basis. So I'll look for a seconder for Glenn.
I can
If some-
second that.
If somebody else wants to be nominated, that's fine. It might conflict with my Lions meetings on Thursday night.
Yeah, because I don't know at what time does this take place?
So it's normally at 4:30 is when
4:30,
the
okay.
Active Transportation Committee meets. So I will call so we have one nomination on the floor. I will call a second time for any further nominations.
I'm still technically interested, but you say
Okay,
4:30. The
sure.
only reason why is because it's also this, like, I'm also facilitating something on Thursdays, but I might be able to bump. So the duration of these meetings are 2 hours as well?
They're 2 hours, yeah. Sometimes they don't go the full duration, but they're scheduled from 4:30 to 6:30 on Thursdays. And it's, like I said, it's normally the third Thursday of every month.
Yeah, I think I should have looked at this before because I'm taking a risk
Okay.
that if I change the time, it's gonna change stuff on my end.
So would you like to proceed with nominating yourself, or?
I want to, but I think I'll have to pass on this one.
All right, I will call a third and final time for any further nominations for the position. Okay, seeing none, nominations will cease, and we will now need a motion to appoint Glenn Babcock to Active Transportation Advisory Committee representative.
Can make that motion.
Councillor Russell, seconded by
I'll second.
Right, I will now call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Right,
This is
seeing none
twice, this is,
opposed,
sorry, this is twice this year that I've been elected to something in my first meeting.
congratulations. So Glenn, I will declare you the member who has been elected to as the representative to the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I will now hand the floor over to the chair to guide us
Okay.
through the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
Celine, I believe you should have received that from Annie in your inbox.
In my inbox, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna look right away. I have to look at my phone because if it's all the tabs, I have two screens here and it still doesn't keep me organized, but I will get there. I'm almost there.
Take your time.
Okay. So I think I was looking at it. Sorry. Yeah, I think I was looking at it anyway. Again, I warn you all, do not be scared. I am slow, but I'm not always slow. I'll catch up. Okay, so now.
And I can
It's-
definitely, I'm here for any type of support, anything you're unsure about on the annotated agenda, I can help you with that.
Yeah, I think it's because it's like my first like ever meeting. So it's like once
Oh,
I
of
know
course.
what
Yeah.
to call something like because that's what I got stuck. I saw it was like election of vice chair, but I didn't know that you called it an item. So that's it. It's me just
Mhm.
kind of knowing what's the word lingo for everything. So now approval of minutes of April 22nd, 2024. I will now ask if there are any changes to the minutes of April 22nd, 2024 meeting. If there are none, I would invite a member to move the following motion. So,
So the motion is that the minutes of the April 22nd, 2024 Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented, and you will need a mover and a seconder for that motion.
okay. It's like training on the fly. Sorry, guys.
I'll move that motion.
Okay.
I can second it.
Okay, so the next step there, it's believe it should say on your annotated agenda, it
Oh,
says,
yeah.
I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye, or
Hands,
raise
please.
hands, and all those opposed.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
so
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Elizabeth, you might be
So it
helping me
looks
out.
like those are in, everyone's in favor. So now as the
Everyone's
chair,
in-
you would declare if the motion has carried or been defeated, and in this case, it's been carried.
Awesome. Okay, yes.
The motion carried.
The motion has been carried. Okay, great. I will re-watch this just so I know next time it won't be this crazy. Okay, so then after that, we go for the next item, which is the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. We will now move on to the approval of the order of business for today's meeting to our legislative assistant. Are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no changes to today's agenda.
Awesome. So I will, okay, so when you say that, then I will invite a member of the committee to move the
Mhm.
following motion.
So we have another motion that we have to approve, and the motion in this case would be that the agenda be approved as presented. So
Mhm.
once again, like the minutes, we'll just need a mover and a seconder for that.
Okay,
This is Rochelle. I will move to accept the agenda. I forgot what we were on. Yeah.
And I'll second that.
Perfect. So just like the minutes, you can call for the question, Celine, and
Okay.
ask that all those in favor to say aye and all those opposed to say nay.
okay, got it. So all the questions, all those in favor to say aye or raise hands.
Aye.
Aye.
And so the motion has been carried.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, the motion has been carried. Okay, great. And then our next item, business arising out of the minutes, and it says /none, trait none.
Correct.
Item number 5, call for declaration of conflict of interests. I will now ask if anyone has a conflict of interest to declare as a result of an item on today's agenda. Please let the committee respond. If there are no declarations of conflict of interest, the meeting proceeds.
Look like there's any declarations of conflicts of interest, so it looks like you are okay to proceed.
Okay. So our next item is correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Item 7.1, correspondence. To our clerk, has any correspondence has been received?
No correspondence has been received by the clerk's office.
Okay. And our next item, petitions. To our clerk, are there any petitions to be presented?
No petitions have been received. No petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Okay, great. And presentations / trait, there's none.
Mhm.
Next item, information items brought forward, trait none. Number 9, reports discussion.
And actually, just before we get into this item, I know there's quite a few new members with us today. I know we didn't really go through introductions at the beginning of the meeting just because of the elections, but maybe it would be a good idea to go around and maybe some new members, or everyone can just briefly introduce themselves. You can, of course, start with yourself if you would like.
Sure. I actually wrote it because it was going to be some pretty terrible word jumble, and a lot of people can't really understand, like, why would I be claiming any disability, but I have it there, so I'm going to read it to keep organized. So, hi everyone, my name is Céline Vautour, and we were talking about last names. Try to pronounce mine. That will be a fun one. To tell you a bit about myself and why being part of the Accessibility Advisory Committee holds great importance to me. I have been living through life with an invisible disability that has impacted my life in many significant ways. I promise this isn't gonna be, it's just short, it's shorter than you think. I have a sensory processing condition where I am greatly affected by sounds and lights, hence my tints, my tinted glasses that I wear, and my use of noise canceling headphones. Migraines also run my life. Under sensory overwhelm, I'm vulnerable to environmental triggers. So that can, and so this will explain to my involvement here that I'm hoping to improve on accessibility in the HRM, because there's a lot of environmental triggers that I run into within the HRM that can cause public meltdowns and shutdowns. So that's pretty embarrassing, and it has also kept me at home more than I wanted to. So I've been working hard these last couple of years to be able to figure out how to access public spaces, to be able to diminish what my sensory triggers are in order to feel comfortable and want to be out and about. So also wanted to especially mention this. My main focus also in disability advocacy is employment. Without a driver's license in the HRM, access to employment can be greatly diminished for everyone, including disabled individuals who are statistically more prone to be unemployed. I would like to say that my notable fact, I felt short last summer of a 311 job position, as it was revealed I wouldn't have access to reliable transportation to the job site in Woodside Industrial Park. So it is pretty funny for me that I couldn't even get a municipal job in this city because accessibility and transit is just very minimal. So anyways, I am looking forward to being part of this committee, and I'll leave it to anybody else who wants to present themselves. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm also new and next on the screen, I guess. I have not prepared anything in advance. I was born and grew up in the Annapolis Valley. I was born legally blind. Had the option of going to the School for the Blind in Halifax when they had one, but chose not to, mainly because I was scared off by their vocational program that they had. So I graduated high school at West Kings in the Valley, Did 2 degrees at Dalhousie, and in 1987 I moved to Ontario, where for 5 years I sold assistive technology for people who are blind or visually impaired. Like Celine, I don't have a driver's license. My territory selling assistive technology went from Kingston, Ontario to Regina, Saskatchewan. So I was a live version of Del Griffiths from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, traveling around with my big trunk, except mine was full of technology and not shower curtain rings. I worked for 30 years for the Ontario government, the last 13 years as an IT manager for the judiciary in Ontario. And last year I retired and moved back to Nova Scotia. My wife and I settled on Porter's Lake, so it's quite a bit different from the valley, but geographically it's very similar to Newfoundland, where my wife is from. Being back in Nova Scotia and being part of Halifax, and being retired and wanting to keep busy, I've taken on a number of different volunteer activities, from working in a food bank, joining the Lake Echo Lions Club, being on the condo board for my housing development. I also am on the accessibility, diversity, and inclusion committee for Golf Nova Scotia, and also on the HR committee for Golf Canada, because despite being legally blind, I'm also an avid golfer. I've played competitive blind golf around the world. And I wanted to do something to reconnect with my former city of Halifax, and this committee presented a great opportunity to do that. And that's me.
Yay. Anyone else want to share about themselves?
Yeah, I can go next if possible.
Okay, sure.
Hello, everybody. My name's Oliver Keith. I'll be joining you all today. My background within disability is personal. I have arthritis and other, autoimmune diseases through multiple joints and within some of my organs. I also have a deeper connection with neurodivergency within family and other volunteer activities. A lot of my connection with advocacy has been through the Canadian Arthritis Society, and it's brought me to a point where I hope to advocate more, especially within the realm of youth and children, especially within advocacy for disability and accessibility. Beyond that, I think I share a lot of similar interests with other people within the call. I've done a lot of work within transit, especially accessibility within transit. And I hope to share some of my experiences and some of the work I've done with other people within my life, with the committee, and working towards better Halifax. So thank you all very much.
So anybody else? Who's next?
It's Rochelle. I'll go next. My name is Rochelle Manette. I use they, them, and she, her pronouns. I am, oh my God, where do I even start, I guess. This is not my first time on the committee. I've gotten to be on it for a couple of years now, I think. And I've generally really enjoyed myself. So yay, happy to be back. Cool to get to try to take on the vice chair role. That'll be interesting, I think. So thanks for that. Yeah. I am disabled myself, generally mostly physical disabilities, although I also have some experience with neurodivergence and things like that. My background is in recreation therapy, so that's sort of how I first got into the disability realm. And I was a researcher for a very brief period of time. I did my master's, and all my work is related to sex and disability. So that's fun. I won't talk about it all that much here, but I am pretty involved in the disability community and from my own experience, and also a lot of the work that I do. Yeah, I think that's it. I'll just keep it short. Oh, actually, I feel like this is a good place to add. I know sometimes for like the chair and the vice chair, people will use like the sort of formal monikers, Ms. and Mr. and things like that. If you are going to use that for me, I would prefer the gender neutral MX. You can pronounce it as mix. Just figured I'd throw that out now while I could, and that's my introduction.
Thank you. And also for myself, kind of say, I don't like being referred to as lady. I'm not, but everything else is pretty easy for that one. But thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Who's next? Or would you like for me to call your name? Paul, you look like you're ready.
Sure, I can go next.
Sure.
So I'm Councillor Paul Russell. I represent Lower Sackville, arguably the best district in HRM, arguably the best municipality in Nova Scotia, arguably the best place in the world. And so I'm very proud to represent this place. The image behind me is First Lake, which is arguably the best lake in the aforementioned Lower Sackville, HRM, Nova Scotia, and the world. I've been a counselor for about 5 years, and I'm going to be reoffering this fall for anybody who is curious. Prior to this, I had been volunteering and helping out in every community of interest that I have been in, whether it was related to software development or related to my community or my kids' school or whatever. And that has often led me into a position of helping in a more formal way. 20 years ago, I was an elected member of the school board. I have taken on leadership roles locally and have, for example, managed every parade in Sackville from 2010 to 2020. And that also led to me being in this role, and I'm thrilled to be here. As far as work goes, I have left a 35-year career of doing software development to take on this role, and that is where the relationship or the similarity, at least, between Glenn's past and mine would come into play. I'm thrilled to be in this role. I get to help out my community in ways that I would have thought that I could, but much more tangibly. And it's been phenomenal to be able to give back to the community and develop a much more broad understanding of what the community is and what it does and what I'm able to do. So that's who I am. Thank you.
I can go next if you like, Celine.
Yes, for sure.
So I am Kathy Daigle-Gammon and Councillor for District 1, which is Waverley, Fall River, and Musquodoboit Valley, and currently your Deputy Mayor. And now you've all heard the sense of humor that Councillor Russell has in terms of his belief about what is the best district. So as Deputy Mayor, I say, like, HRM is awesome. We are so lucky, and it's District 1 for a reason. But this is my first term. And before coming to council, I was 40 years in the nonprofit sector, supporting persons with an intellectual disability and those with a dual diagnosis, in both how people live, exist, and move in the world, as well as in social enterprise and employment. So this committee is near and dear to my heart. Our staff member who supports this from the Accessibility Office, Melissa Myers, she and I have known each other for many years, and I think that we're really blessed as a committee to have somebody like Melissa working with us. So we're fortunate that way, and I look forward to what the committee will do this year. So thank you.
Great, awesome. Who's next?
That leaves me. Oh no, Liz also has to go as well. Liz, would you like to go prior to me?
As in Elizabeth that you're referring to?
No.
No, Liz. Oh, Liz. Okay, got it. So yeah, maybe Liz needs some help with the.
Okay. Obviously, I'm deaf. I'm a deaf person. I use ASL, and I use an ASL and English interpreter, as you can see. The two of them are here today. You know, they're each taking turns, 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. So I'm interested to help improve life for people who are deaf and hard of hearing people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And also older people and senior citizens who have problems with their hearing. You know, they're losing their hearing. Sometimes that group gets ignored. And I think it's, you know, when those things happen, sometimes people don't know how to deal with it. So I feel it's very important to advocate for people who have those issues. So deaf people like to use video relay services. And I prefer that because then you get to use your first language when you're communicating with people instead of using English. You get to use ASL. Some people, it makes it easier for easier communication and smoother communication as well. Everybody and people in there's a lot of diversity in the deaf community, so it's an individual preference. The same with people who are blind. They have different needs and different services that they use. I have been involved in different organizations, with literacy, with the deaf community. The list is very, very long and too long to actually go into detail. But, briefly, I've been involved in volunteering and, I'm looking forward to this. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Liz. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more of detail in your work in advocacy for the hearing impaired.
I would like most people we don't use the term hearing impaired.
Thank you. I was like halfway, I was like, that's the wrong one. I'm sure this was the wrong one.
Myself personally, I don't mind.
Oh, okay. So what would be the most common? I'm going to write it, make note of it. What would be the best term?
What she was saying was, even though I don't mind personally the term, you will get a lot of backlash from many members of the deaf community because they prefer to be called deaf and not hearing impaired. And there are some people who will be greatly offended by that as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna
hearing impaired.
Okay, I promise I'm gonna definitely make sure that I know the appropriate terms, because I've been focused a lot on like the autism community, ADHD community, and other disability communities. And I really respect when there are ways to identify that is personal to everyone, that it's individual. So I will definitely make note as chair to make sure that I use the correct terms that most people generally accept.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, great. So anyone else would like to share who they are?
I'll go. I'm Trish, counselor for District 4. That's Coal Harbor, Westfall, Lake Loon, and Cherrybrook. And it's actually the best district in HRM. We have beautiful trails. We overlook the ocean there and have wonderful nature here in the district. It's beautiful. Great people. So I don't have a CV.
Halifax?
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, in HRM. Yep. Just in between Dartmouth and Lawrencetown, Lake Echo. We're right in between. Kind of the suburbs of Dartmouth. And I don't have a CV for any of this. I was a fitness instructor for 26 years, never sat on a board in my life until I joined regional council. So Celine, in the first hour of your sharing, you've already done a better job than me in the first couple of years of my position here. So well done.
Well, honestly, I love that you're even coming here as an active listener, that you're also going to be contributing to things as you are listening to all of us share our experiences as disabled in one way, shape, or form. And that also, too, I want to kind of highlight as well that and because I did write longer, and it's same thing, and we're all kind of afraid of taking up space here, but I wanted to really highlight too, while this is my first participation in municipal politics in the HRM, I'm not new to disability advocacy. I've been spending like the last couple of years, I'm reading because I'll get in word jumble. I've been spending the last couple of years of giving feedback meetings with officials in hope of like inspiring solutions to problems that many of us have been facing and accessing like public services, especially most notably like public servants that are autism and trauma informed. Because it can go with it, like we can run the risk of being undermined of our accommodation needs. And I like, again, like same thing as you are here to do, as many of us are here to do, to actively listen to everybody. Certainly, I really enjoyed what Liz had to share in what I need to adjust in my language. Anyways, yeah. Anyway, so I also like understand that disabled individuals all experience varying levels of support needs. And I think that is what has been kind of something that is difficult in disability politics, is everyone wants to take space, but we're afraid to take space if our disability needs are lower than other people. But at the same time, I care for people who are higher support needs, especially I can't wait to hear more through Councillor Daigle Gaiman. Sorry, forgive me. I want to know how to pronounce your name better.
Oh, sure, it's easy. Yeah, Daigle Gammon.
Daigle Gaiman? Okay, all right, great. So that's the thing. It's like I'm really excited to be part of this committee. So because as it seems already that we're quite diverse in disability topics. So thank you. And did you wanted to share more, Trish? You're good?
Oh, I'm good. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
I
Awesome.
one more thing though. I have 2 community meetings starting at 6 p.m. tonight, so I am gonna have to duck out a little early. But
Okay,
just wanted
sure.
to make that note.
Okay, great. Who else would like to present themselves?
think
I
we
noticed-
may have gone through everyone.
Through
at
everyone?
this
Oh,
point.
okay.
Yeah.
Only because it's like I noticed there's a lot of people where like their cameras are off, so I'm not always like certain of their existence.
I think there might be one more person who hasn't gone.
Melissa, maybe, our staff
Or
liaison?
is Krista? Hi, Krista.
Yeah. Hi. I wasn't sure if I should introduce myself now, or I'm one of the presenters. I'm a guest to the meeting.
Sure.
So maybe I'll do my introduction now. So my name is Krista Cumming, and I work for HRM as the manager of the engineering design team within design and construction of public works. And I'm an engineer. And I identify with the pronouns she, her. And in terms of my visual appearance, I'm wearing a black shirt. And I guess people would think of me as being like Caucasian, and my skin is sort of pink and see-through. I'm wearing daisy earrings, and I have sort of long reddish brown hair, and usually smiling. So that's me.
Nice. Nice to meet you. And I'm actually really appreciating your visual description. This is something that I myself would like to get better at doing. But like today I'm clumsy, so anybody who can hear, I would give you a visual description, but I can't do this today. I'll write it down better for next time. The other question I have too is like closed captioning. I'm even looking in the app, because you know how we are always going into these online meetings and sometimes the app is not so clear. Is there a part in the screen that somebody can point out that I could put closed captioning, live closed captioning on Zoom?
So normally for the Zoom meetings, we don't have closed captioning on, but I can certainly turn the closed captionings, the captions on if needed.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any place for closed.
Sorry, I'm actually double checking here. No, I'm not. Sorry, it looks like I'm actually not able to.
Oh, okay. Is this something that we can apply for a future meeting?
I can certainly touch base with you about it after this meeting.
Okay, that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
we can take that
Thanks.
back.
Thank you.
All right, so
So-
it looks like you can probably lead us to 911 now.
Okay. Oh, okay, so 911 snow removal in HRM. Next on our agenda is a winter operations overview presentation from Stephen York, Manager of Winter Operations and Training. Following presentation, Stephen will be available to answer questions from committee members. Stephen, you may begin with your presentation.
So I'm going to
Great.
share Stephen's presentation. So I'll just get that up on my screen here, and then we can go ahead. Right, everyone can see that?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Like was mentioned, my name is Stephen York. I'm the Manager of Winter Operations and Training here for Halifax, and that's within Public Works. So we'll just have a brief presentation to go over our winter operations, what we do, where we do, and kind of the different things that are involved. Next slide, please. So a few of the things we want to run over today are the inventory, what we plow, council approved service standards, how long it takes us to plow it, our accessibility awareness training that we do in-house, the senior snow program, our service review that occurs, and we'll have some time, like mentioned, at the end for any questions. Next slide. So in Atrium, we have both in-house and contractor cleared sidewalks. Atrium in-house staff look after downtown Dartmouth, Halifax, and Burnside, while the remainder of sidewalk inventory throughout the municipality is serviced through performance-based contractors. The municipality has approximately 1,100 kilometers of sidewalk that receives winter maintenance. That's maintenance is split between 3 priority levels, P1, P2, and P3. P1 sidewalks are cleared within 12 hours at the end of a snow event, and they are mostly consist of main arterial, school frontages, and healthcare centers. P2 sidewalks are cleared within 18 hours after the snow has stopped, and P2s would be sidewalk on any transit routes that are not included in the P1s. So almost the majority of transit routes are on P1s. However, we do have a few isolated areas that would fall under the P2 service standard of 18 hours. And P3 sidewalks are cleared within 36 hours and are typically residential sidewalks. The municipality also provides winter maintenance to almost 2,400 bus stops throughout the region, and the service standard for those, the time for completion, would be 24 hours. Next slide, please. So for streets, the municipality provides winter maintenance to over 4,300 lane kilometers of roads, stretching from Bootler's Point in the west to Minesville and Lake Echo in the east. Service on those streets throughout the municipality is also split between in-house staff and performance-based contracts. In Halifax, our in-house staff plow all the roads on the peninsula and Clayton Park, while in Dartmouth, all streets within the circumferential highway are cleared by in-house staff. Service standards for streets are 12 hours for priority ones, which would be the main roads, arterials, or roads with steep grades, while P2s are completed within 24 hours, which would be the majority of residential streets. Next slide, please. The next topic I just want to touch on would be our accessibility awareness training. So this is an Atrium training module that was developed by Public Works in conjunction with the Office of Diversity Inclusion. This training is mandatory for our Atrium supervisors and all contractors who provide winter maintenance for the municipality. The training consists of classroom instruction, where we review various mobility aids, snow clearing expectations, and the difficulties that uncleared or improperly cleared sidewalks can pose to residents who may be walking or rolling. After the classroom portion of the training is completed, the attendees physically use the mobility aids to navigate scenarios to demonstrate how difficult an improperly cleared ramp is to traverse. Or another scenario would be the difficulties that excessive salt may cause. Next slide, please. The next couple slides are from our accessibility awareness training presentation. On the left, you can see an example of what a properly cleared sidewalk and ramp would look like, while on the right, you can see that although the sidewalk is plowed at least once, the finished condition is not acceptable and it would require additional plowing and salting. Next slide, please. And here we have a couple examples of poorly cleared ramps that need further attention. Obviously, the slush, not good. It's going to freeze. It's going to make it very difficult to get across. And on the right, you can see a push button there by the crosswalk flag. It's not accessible at all. So the expectation there would be that the snowbank be completely removed, which would allow users unimpeded access and easily walk up or roll up and touch that push button if required. Next slide. And as you see of the photo on the left here, we used a small table to demonstrate a snowbank, which shows how difficult it would be to reach and operate that pay station if an entire area was not cleared appropriately. And on the right, we have some loose stone there that trainees traverse to basically just demonstrate, excess salt or different things like that, and knowing that the right amount of salt and when to use it and not to put too much down. Some other training we do in the past has been with the CNIB, and specifically with Public Works and winter maintenance. Next slide, please. Next, we'll touch on the Senior Snow Program. So the municipality provides funding to support this program, which delivers residential snow removal for eligible seniors or persons with disabilities. The last year, we had over 600 residents participating. The residents receive clearing the front and back steps, walkways, ramps, and access to a fuel tank if required. The program operates first come, first served basis. And the application for this upcoming winter opens this fall. More information, including eligibility requirements, application forms, anything like that can be found on the YMCA Halifax website. Next slide. The winter service review. So this is something that first occurred for us in 2019 when the municipality engaged a consultant to review our entire winter maintenance program. The consultant reached out to various municipalities and cities across Canada to compare our services. In addition to comparisons, they hosted numerous stakeholder feedback sessions with groups such as the Halifax Cycling Coalition, Walk and Roll Halifax, the Province of Nova Scotia Accessibility Directorate, CNIB, the Canadian Paraplegic Association of Nova Scotia, I think our Diversity Inclusion Office, and others. The consultant also reviewed our service standards for winter maintenance of sidewalks, bike lanes, streets, bus stops, etc. And they provided recommendations to revise service standards in their final report. The staff presented that report with the recommendations to Regional Council for discussion and subsequent approvals. One of the recommendations in that report that was brought forward was to bring forward funding options to change the service standards for bus stops from the previous 48 hours to 24 hours, which is the new and current standard. The next review will occur this winter, and we plan to present the findings and any recommendations to service standard adjustments to council in early 25-26. So that's an opportunity to change anything or make improvements to the program. Next slide. I think that's all I really have. So like the chair mentioned, we have time for questions if anyone has any questions.
I am more of, it's not more of a question, but it's more like an observation, is because we're giving timelines of priority. And most often when we're looking at storms in Halifax, because like Halifax is like my third city in my life, like my third municipality. And the one thing that I've noticed with how weather works in Halifax, it's that we get a sometimes it's just like a light snow dump, but then it's like we seem to wait too long. Like it just feels like we should prioritize getting the first layer of snow plowed as fast as we can, because it's like a second that the snow becomes so heavy on top of then we just end up with like compacted snow and more ice, where it makes it even harder to plow through. Like I always have been wondering on these timelines, forgive me, I forgot what the first timeline, 24 hours? Like, oh no, there was 12 hours.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's always noticeable because I was always the housewife that would be shoveling the driveway. And I can tell you the first 4 hours is the one that matters the most. Because if you can't get that first layer, and we keep having these flux of temperature. So it's like it just can get warm all of a sudden, starts melting, and then we have another snow dump on top of that. And that's why, like when it gets heavy, then it becomes so compacted, and then it becomes a layer of ice. And that's why it just seems to me that every time we're seeing plowing happening, it doesn't even get to the underlayer. It goes up top and then it makes everything unstable. You know, like it causes like an instability is my observation. Like obviously too, I'm coming from a place where I haven't attended any of these meetings. I don't know if this has already been brought up, has it?
Yeah. So the 12-hour completion is the expectation. Everything is done within 12 hours. So crews get out immediately during the snowfall, and as soon as the snow stops, they're already out plowing. So obviously, there's always going to be a start and an end to any plow route. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of plowing, the way it goes. But for the priority ones, the goal is to get out early. And we've had some good feedback and some good contractors and staff in the past number of years, and where they recognize, just like you said, it's easier to plow it early, and it's easier to plow. It takes less time to plow. The finished condition is better. That you need less salt. So many benefits. So a lot of them have really noticed that and taken that new approach where maybe they'll get out a little earlier, put a few extra machines out, and try to get it done sooner and faster. But the maritime climate, absolutely, it's very difficult here.
Oh yeah, but like even just notably Halifax, like the flash freeze, like how we go from super warm to super cold in, from the influence of the ocean. And forgive me, I'm a bit jaded. I'm in the West End, in my neighborhood, because we're all talking about our districts and stuff. I'm in the West End, and in the West End, it's housed with a lot of elderly people. And so that's why I get very confused, especially in my area, where in the Quinpool area, where we don't seem to prioritize that. Like it's definitely not within the first 4 hours. It's definitely looking like 10, 12 hours when the damage is technically already done. Like it doesn't seem like we have that as like priority in my area. I don't know if other people can applaud to a good job done with the sidewalks in their district, but everything that I've been seeing in the Quinpool area is just not up to speed. And for the demographic of people that live here, I actually do feel like we're not prioritizing the West End enough as like my feedback.
Okay.
And second last one too, because that one's been on my mind for a while, is that again, we're talking about street corners. Like those are so important to prioritize. Like while I understand we can't have a plow going exactly at the time that we want, but do we have this like ability to even come up with a volunteer system where within, like, let's say my neighborhood, somebody who has a really great shovel or something will be the one who takes care of at least these street corners? Because again, it's just the way that snow accumulates here. It's detrimental, because as much as we can have a clear path with the sidewalks, the street corners are still a barrier,
Yes, street corners are especially difficult. You can, like you mentioned, you can have a perfectly cleared sidewalk and road, and one bus, one truck, one something that goes around that corner, knocks the snowbank in, and crews have to go back out, hand shovel, plow, do whatever they need to do to clear that. But yeah, absolutely right. I wish there was a magic wand we could wave to erase that. It would make our lives so much easier. However, it's a constant going back and going back and going back, circling back to make sure those things are cleared and stay cleared.
Right. But like as like counselors, maybe counselors could help me out with that. Because I remember, because I've been in Halifax for 16 years. And I remember when I first got here, the onus was on everyone to shovel. And so we see a lot less of that. Like, I don't know what is even the bylaw today. Like, is it the responsibility on the contractors to shovel, or are we still giving
The
response?
municipality provides sidewalk clearing.
Okay. Has there been a noticeable difference in clearance of sidewalks ever since that it's just been assigned to contractors?
It's not just contractors, so it's a mix of in-house staff and contractors, depending on the area.
Okay. And somebody has their hand. Oliver, you would like to share?
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for the presentation. I haven't been informed on snow removal in Halifax before, so that was great to hear. My question, and like absolutely throw in and correct me if I'm wrong, but something that I've thought about before, especially with the winter, is green space, especially accessible green space. Summer green space is already particularly limited, and it's especially the case within the winter. I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration to how we can kind of engage in creating more accessible winter green space, and kind of think of ways that are both environmentally considerate while also accessible, because I can recognize that creating accessible green space can be difficult in terms of assets and the use of salt, for example, within a green space. So I'm just wondering if that's been considered before, and if you have any thoughts in regards to that.
Yeah, no, great question. So the green space fall under parks, which is a different department than I'm in public works. But so some of the things they have done in the recent years is public gardens. They do maintain those walkways when they can in the winter. Point Pleasant Park, they maintain those. And there's some other areas where Parks has been progressively starting to complete more winter maintenance, and that allows users to get out and use the parks in the winter. One tough thing is, though, it's very difficult to maintain a non-paved or hard surfaced area, so that kind of limits what you can do. That puts a lot of trails and stuff off to the side. They do it, like I said, they do it at Point Pleasant Park, they do it at the public gardens. However, it does take a lot of work, and it's, I think, quite time consuming for them to do that. But that's definitely something that Parks has looked at, and we've chatted with them in the past about how they can make more parks basically year-round attractions.
Great, thank you very much.
So I just wanted to just draw your attention to, Celine, we do actually on the annotated agenda, we have a speakers list. So normally the chair will go through the speakers list. I know you've already asked your own questions, and Oliver had a chance to ask
that was like down the list.
Go through the speakers list.
Sure, thank you. So what would be best? Would I like, let's say, for example, call to April Adams if she has something to share?
Normally, yes. April actually is not in the meeting today, but
okay,
you can just go to the next person on the list.
Yes, and just to note, I have processing issues, so when I mispronounce someone, if I make that mistake, I promise I won't make that mistake again. So I'm doing my best because there's a lot for me to handle right now, but I do respect the use of personal pronouns, preferred pronouns. Okay, so next would be Rochelle Manette. Are they here? I'll just refer to everybody today. Are they here? Oh yeah, Rochelle, sorry. Yeah, you are they. Okay, yay. Do you have something to share?
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Stephen, for that presentation. I've been really looking forward to hearing from the sort of snow removal stuff, because I feel like a lot of us don't, well, at least like I experience a lot of issues with snow removal, but I don't often get to talk to anybody about it. I think my main question is, you showed a couple of photos of like what is considered like the right kind of snow removal and what it's supposed to look like, and then what's sort of like unacceptable. And I feel like we see the unacceptable snow removal as kind of the finished product a little bit too often in the city. And so, knowing that the rule is meant to be the acceptable version, I assume, like who is, like, how are we holding snow removal whatnot accountable for like the acceptable and the unacceptable, I suppose?
Yeah, no, for sure. So we have a team of supervisors. They're out all the time whenever it's snowing, after the storm, and they're out there, they're monitoring. So initially they'll be making sure that the priority 1 sidewalks are done, following up with contractors, following up with our own in-house staff and saying, hey, you have to circle back. This ramp is not good. These push buttons are not good. The bus stop here is inadequately cleared. And they go through that in the inventory. They take notes. We do performance evaluations. For the contracted stuff, we do have liquidated damages, which we have applied in the past to contractor performance when they're not doing what we're paying them to do and reaching those standards that we're expecting. But so there's tools in the toolbox, and we have reached in and used them in the past.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm glad that there are tools in the toolbox. I'm glad that like it is being noted. I do find from experience, like so often the sort of like what you've deemed unacceptable snow clearing is what the finished product is a lot of the time. And so I wonder if there's a way to like up that accountability process maybe. And how do we go from like 1 year of improper snow removal to the next year of hopefully acceptable and proper snow removal. So that's the final thought. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so next would be Deputy Mayor Kathy Deagle-Gaiman. Do you have something to share?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mostly just thank you, Stephen York. So from other members of the committee that are not councillors, I would tell you that we all get to know Stephen very, very, very well during the winter season, because it's almost on a daily basis we're calling in around issues around accessibility and snow removal and all of that kind of stuff. So, I do know that when people call into 311 report an area that there's a problem, that they're very good at actually trying to get there as fast as they can and to make sure that accessibility is there. But it's an endless job. So thank you, Stephen, for all your work and always taking our phone calls and emails. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have Councillor Trish Purdy.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and thanks, Stephen, for this. And actually, yeah, I mean, we have amazing staff. I know Jason like on speed dial for me in my district for issues, but I would say counselors have a good, if 311 isn't working, to contact your counselor, Rochelle, and perhaps that might give you access or help when you see something that needs to be fixed when it comes to snow removal. I was wondering, Stephen, so the last service review or the winter service review was in 2019. So does that mean another service review is coming up this year for winter operations?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So we hope to have it out this fall so that we have a consultant engaged this winter so they're here during the winter and experience and give us some good feedback to shape any changes.
Okay, excellent. And then my second question was just on, I think, not so much last year, but perhaps the year before, there was like some labor shortage issues, and I know that impacts service delivery for sure. So I'm just wondering what in your experience, how is the labor when it comes to our winter ops? Do we have enough employees? Do we have enough machines? Like winter operations machines? Is there anything lacking from your perspective that needs to be improved in order to improve our service delivery? And then on the heels of that, for the training, do all employees, like not just HRM, but even contract folks, do they go through all of the training for accessibility as well?
Yeah, so for staffing, we don't really have a shortage of staffing. We were concerned around COVID about levels of staffing. However, it never actually materialized. We were fully staffed up. Equipment's always a revolving door. New stuff comes in, old stuff goes out, stuff breaks down. Equipment always breaks down. Even you have a brand new piece of equipment that 2 days in, it may break down. The biggest issue right now for us, honestly, is just mechanics and parts. and that's just an industry-wide shortage of mechanics. So it's not an HRM specific, it's not contractor specific, it's just right across the board. It's very difficult to get mechanics. But that is what it is, and we find ways to work around that and problem solve when need be. And then the last question was around the training. Yes. So all of our supervisors take the training, and currently all of our contractors have all taken the training. Now, not every single person for every single contractor has taken it. That we're talking hundreds and hundreds of people. And unfortunately, we're not geared up to do that. However, we do train the supervisors, or train the managers, and we do provide our presentation to them. So this past winter, I know a few of them have taken that presentation of what we do in the training and pass along through toolbox talks, through beginning of winter operations meetings with their staff, and really trying to push home that message. And it's something we really, as an organization, really have been pushing the past few years is accessibility, right? It's okay, and often some of these ramps and stuff, they only need one swipe with a shovel, and that's the difference between it being very difficult to get through on a wheelchair, perhaps, or easier to get through. So it's really just focusing on that, the little things of, like I said, ramps, push buttons, things like that, where it's not good enough. We want it to be a great. So it's those things we try to focus on.
Yeah, that's great. I'm wondering, I'll wait. I think we get to come back again. I think my time is up. Thank you.
Elizabeth, do we have a time limit of us speaking? Just so there is
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Normally
Okay.
it's 5 minutes.
5 minutes. I'm going to have to put a timer, because if you guys all notice, I'm hyperverbal. I could keep going and going. So I'll make sure to police myself for that. Next on the list would be Liz, if Liz has something to share.
Okay. I would like to share my experiences with this. It really was awful. The weather changes quite often, year to year. It's never the same. But I remember probably about 20 or 15 years ago, the ice was awful, especially around Halifax. The Halifax Infirmary. Yeah, the ice was pretty bad around the Halifax Infirmary. It was absolutely awful. It was a thick layer of ice, and the snow was piled up. And people, people young and old were having problems. So what were you doing? You would have to you really had no choice but just to kind of get through the snow and the ice. But it didn't seem like it was improving. Anyway, I'm having a hard time seeing her because the screen's cutting off where her hands are.
Yep, that's no problem. Robie's a really popular street, so there's a lot of traffic going down it. So for young people, it's okay because they can trudge through the snow, but for older people, they can't. They would have to walk on the side of the road, and especially on Robie Street where it's so busy, you just don't want to be taking that risk. Sorry, just 1 second. Ugh, Liz is not seeing me right now. So some people have other problems, especially for apartments and people that live outside the city. Just 1 second. I'm going to try and get Liz's attention.
How far back do you want me to go in what I was saying?
Yep, so just saying that the roads in near the Halifax Infirmary were really bad and they had super high snow. There's lots of high snow on the side. And there wasn't anything provided there. It was pretty dangerous. So a lot of people that didn't have boots or anything had to go and walk on to the side of the road. And again, Robie Street, it's incredibly busy. There's lots of traffic, so people are trying to stay really close to the side, making sure that the drivers can see who's walking by, and it's just quite dangerous. And that's just something that I don't want to see happen again. So we really need to be keen on ice prevention and how we can get rid of that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, for sure. So,
and also, people that use trolleys to push things around or have strollers for people that can't carry heavy things or even wheelchair users. There's so many people that would benefit from having snow cleared appropriately. As well, for people that use a cane, for people that are blind or visually impaired, it would be a great benefit for them as well. And it's just a big piece of this is the education part. People need to be aware, especially through posts on social media, to let people know about which priority group they are, whether it's P1, 2, or 3, because this is the first time I've ever even heard of that system. And thinking back a few years ago, now I can understand sort of why my area might not have been prioritized or one street would have. I think it'd just be nice to have that information out. And then you'd be able to reduce people complaining because they would understand that their area is not a priority and that they'd sort of be able to figure it out through that. So I think the education piece is very important. And that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we actually this past year developed a little information sheet, one sheet in conjunction with the Diversity of Office and Inclusion.
Thanks, Hunter.
And they're going to try and pass it along to different groups so that those groups have the information at their fingertips and don't have to really go digging for it. But yes, noted. The other thing we've done in the past number of years is look at all the health centers and stuff like that and really change the frontages of those to be P1 or priorities. But yeah, the information sheet is helpful, and we'll work with our comms team to implement some more additional information this upcoming winter that maybe spells out priorities, what they are, and how you can go to find which priority street you live on or sidewalk.
Okay, great. I accidentally skipped the list a little, so the next person is Councillor Paul Russell, if you have anything to share.
Thank you. I would echo a lot of what Councillor Daigle-Gammon said, in that this is something that we get calls on all the time through the winter, and especially this past winter, where it was a challenge to meet the service standards a number of times, including storms that had a lot of snow. And I simply want to thank Stephen and everybody who he coordinates with to take care of it as efficiently as possible. I don't know that I have much else to add at this point. I am interested in hearing the challenges that everybody has, so that we can work to make it better, recognizing that there is a balancing act in what we try to provide with services. So if we provide more services, that will naturally come with a cost. And we, the councillors, have to find what that balance is between providing the right level of service for anything that we do against what the cost is. And it becomes a real challenge. I'm pleased with some of the progress that we've made in previous years. Of course, we can always do more, we can always do better, and we are continuously reevaluating all of that. I especially look to this committee to see some of the ways that we can improve. But otherwise, I don't have anything to add at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Glenn Babcock.
I won't be very long. I just wanted to paraphrase a movie title from last year. Having worked on a number of service contracts myself, you can't do everything everywhere all at once. So it was very helpful to see the priority structure. And Councillor Russell partially made this point anyway. The service standards, as I noticed them, were based on 15 centimeters of accumulation, which about 6 inches of snow. That's a reasonable amount of snow where you actually can pile it between a sidewalk and a road. But if we have 45 or 50 centimeters, like we had a couple times last year, there has to be somewhere to put the snow. So you may have all the best intentions of doing the sidewalks the full width and everything else, but then you can't keep the snowbanks so low enough where people can see them or get over them. So I realize that there are exceptions to those service standards when Mother Nature doesn't cooperate. I also understand a little bit of managing these contracts. I've only been in my house in Porters Lake for a year, but Halifax doesn't clear all the way to our subdivision. So we have a private snow clearing contract. And being on the condo board there, I hear from residents all the time when things don't get cleared in front of their house as quickly as they should be. So it's hard to make everybody happy. But fortunately for me, being retired, when we have a big snowfall, I just resign myself to the fact that I'm probably not going anywhere for a while. And that's also because one of my vision issues is that I'm very light sensitive. So a lot of snow and a lot of sun is a terrible combination for me. But that being said, I appreciate the standards that Halifax Public Works is trying to hold themselves to. And I hope that you continue to work on refining and supporting those efforts in the future. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And Oliver, you have spoken to. There is someone that isn't here that I have a difficulty with pronouncing their name. Elizabeth?
Bivshan?
Yeah.
He is not in the meeting today.
He's not in the meeting
So you
today.
can just skip over that one. Yep.
Oh, okay, great. So I think all is good for this part of the meeting. Yes, everyone's great. Everyone's happy. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Stephen, for sharing this presentation and listening to us and giving your answers to our questions. Now, okay, let's see. Our next item is 912, temporary pedestrian travel paths through work sites. Next on our agenda is a presentation on a report on temporary pedestrian travel paths from Krista Cumming, Manager of Engineering Design, Public Works. Following the presentation, Krista will be available to answer questions from the committee members. Krista, you may begin your presentation.
That's great. Thank you, Celine. And I think Elizabeth is going to share the slides. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Perfect. Everyone can see that well?
That looks right to me. Thank you very much.
Okay,
So I think
awesome.
people heard my introduction, but if not, I'm Krista Cumming, I manage the engineering design team. And today I'm going to present to you about a report that we brought to the Transportation Standing Committee on improving accessibility through temporary pedestrian routes near construction sites. And if you could flip the slide to the next slide, Elizabeth. So the origin of this report was a motion by the Transportation Standing Committee in February of 2021. And I've included the motion here just for information, and maybe I'll read it out to allow people to consider what it said. That's always a big part of us preparing reports. So the motion was that the TSC had requested a staff report recommending establishing new standards for municipal, utility, and abutter work in the right-of-way to ensure accessibility and detectability for pedestrians shall be maintained at all times, was how it was worded. And when we went back and looked at kind of the history and discussion around this issue, this had originated from a concern over people trying to navigate around construction work in the street. So that's kind of in basic terms what the issue at hand was. If you could flip the slide to the next one, Elizabeth. And this is a summary of HRM's legislative authority. Bear with me, this is a bit dry, but I think it's really important that people understand the background and kind of how we're reaching the point that we're at. So there are three important sections of the municipal charter. There's section 188, the power to make bylaws. There's section 322, street-related powers, and section 332, which is temporary purposes in the street. And then in our report, we're also referring to the Provincial Accessibility Act, because we're a creature of the province, and they have drafted built environmental regulations for accessibility in the built environment. Next slide. So now I'll give a bit of background on the issue to put it into context. HRM Regional Council adopted the accessibility strategy on May 18th, 2021, with 4 objectives, including, and I guess I'm highlighting ones that are very important to the forming of this report, I guess in quotations. One of the objectives, objective 1, is creating inclusive public service to ensure that individuals with disabilities can easily access inclusive and equitable municipal services, programs, and facilities without substantial barriers. And item 1.3 under that objective number 1 was to improve accessibility to built environments for individuals with disabilities. So we're in the realm here of the built environment and accessibility of the built environment. Next slide, please. And then we also have a set of strategic actions that came out of the accessibility strategy. And I wanted to sort of draw attention on this slide. I'm highlighting references to the Canadian Standards Association's standard on accessibility in the built environment. So that's CSA B561 that was updated in 2023. And again, I know this is kind of dry material, but these are really important references, and there's a lot of background and work that went into developing these standards. And so both strategic actions 1.3.7 and 1.3.8 refer to applying this CSA standard for future infrastructure in the Halifax region. That's one of the strategic actions. And the other is applying the standard for current infrastructure, including street infrastructure owned by HRM. So you can see we're kind of circling around. We have a standard that has been agreed upon, that people are happy with. I know that in the engineering realm, I guess, and I say people are happy with it, I say that very broadly. So, personally, feel free to disagree with that. But in the engineering realm, I guess we're trying to make sure that we're relying on references that are well worked through and something that we can build upon for local application. And it helps that this standard, of course, like I'm highlighting, was referred to in the accessibility strategy. So that's really, you know, foundational to what we're talking about here. So next slide. So I wanted to give a bit of summary of some of the highlights of the CSA standard that has, I'll call it the CSA standard for accessibility in the built environment, because it has this number name B65123, which is important, but you know, that kind of the nickname was probably the CSA standard. So it talks about several areas that apply to temporary pedestrian routes. And it talks about having the routes be accessible. So that means separated from vehicle traffic. They talk about a clear width of 1.39 to 1.8 meters or 1.2 meters for ramps. They talk about a running slope between 5% and 8.33% for a distance less than 9 meters. So that's kind of, you know, capping the maximum grade on something. That's how we refer to in engineering, is really just the slope of a ramp or an incline. So they call that a running slope. Looking for a cross slope of less than or equal to 2%. So that's, when you think about a cross slope, that's kind of the side to side slope, like the tilt, and uneven surfaces with a lot of cross slope can be sort of tripping hazards, and they cause other issues for accessibility relating to an unstable surface. The surface should be well drained, and the edge should have protection against drops, and it should be continuously lit. So these are all aspects of the CSA standard for accessible routes that are important to highlight. And next slide, please. The next section that we referred to was signage and the importance of signage for accessible pedestrian routes. The signage should be consistently located and positioned to avoid shadow areas and glare. So that's for ease of visibility and detectability, I guess. And they also talk about scaffolding. The scaffolding should provide a clear path 1.6 meters wide and a clear height of 2.05 meters. Next slide, please. So another thing maybe I'll kind of add anecdotally, or as part of the story, is that after we delivered this report to the Transportation Standing Committee, there was a meeting that I think Councillor Purdy chaired and invited the representative from the province. And we talked a little bit about where the province is with their development of the regulations, or the draft regulations under the Accessibility Act. And they were mentioning that their intention was to also follow and be in keeping with the CSA standard. So I just want to kind of reinforce that. So in our review of opportunities for improvement, we think that there's opportunity, well, there definitely is opportunity for improvement with respect to updating minimum pedestrian route widths and heights. So kind of the clear area for pedestrians, making sure that it's wide enough to follow the standard, and also has a height clearance tall enough to follow the standard, so that people aren't accidentally coming in contact with obstacles or something that could hurt them along the way. Signage and barricades that are cane detectable, and this is something that we've repeatedly heard from the community, that it's very important that signage, especially signage for things like a piece of infrastructure being closed, and when people are being redirected, that and you know, the fact that this is often associated with a safety concern, that those be easily cane detectable. And talk about high visibility and continuous channelization to guide pedestrians through temporary routes and around hazards. So we do, I think in our normal application, we try to provide for visibility and continuous routes. But when you think of like a continuous route versus the concept of channelization, that to me, there's an ability to make an improvement there where the route is really clear and easily navigable by people of all ages and abilities. And I think my next slide is actually a repeat accidentally of this slide, but there's an additional bullet. Yeah, so the fourth bullet here, this is another opportunity for improvement that we've identified, that our ramp criteria should be updated to improve accessibility and detectability in keeping with the CSA standard. And then next slide. So I have a series of 3 slides here that talk about the next steps as recommended in the report, and that were given a nod of approval from the Transportation Standing Committee. And I guess to provide a bit of context to this, this is where I think it's important that we think collectively, or like I would like to collect your feedback on what you think about these next steps, because we were asked by the Transportation Standing Committee to bring this report to this group here to collect some feedback before it comes back through TSC and on to Regional Council for consideration. So I guess this presentation is my way of presenting to you the content of the report. Also wanting to flag this to this group's attention for consideration. You can look at the report. It's available online, and I'm sure that Elizabeth, and in combination with others, should circulate it to the group, I think, for consideration. Anyway, that's my that's my kind of baseline context for the next steps, which I'll talk about now. So thinking about these, and then wanting to get some feedback from you, whether it's now or later. So the first next step is for our infrastructure maintenance and operations team of public works. So they're called IMO, infrastructure maintenance and operations. Excuse me. To implement cane detectable barriers for use in their summer works for 2024. So when we were preparing this report, I'll just provide a little bit of context for this item. I was concerned, I mean, I'm the author of the report. I was concerned that we wanted tangible outcomes because the issue of accessibility, there's a lot of change that's needed, and we want to make sure that we're making a step in the right direction. So we were trying to take a look at the things that are really within HRM's control, immediate control, as a starting point for a place that we could make tangible change quickly. So it's, like, where can we pivot to change things quickly? And that's this first point of this first next step was really focused on something we can control and something that we've heard is important to our community members. So again, this is our internal group, IMO, implementing cane detectable barriers for use in the summer of 2024 for work that is taking place, that is being delivered internally by HRM. And they are doing that. That is underway. So that's a good thing. Next slide. We'll highlight our next step, number 2. So over the coming months, the HRM Temporary Workplace Traffic Control Manual Supplement, that's a big long name for a document. We call it the TWTCMS, which is a really awkward acronym. But if you see that in the report, or you might recognize that long acronym. So that's again the HRM Temporary Workplace Traffic Control Manual Supplement, and that's a supplement to the Provincial Traffic Control Manual for temporary workplaces. So we're required to follow that provincial document, but we have our own HRM supplement that kind of adds an HRM context to the provincial requirements. And the recommendation or the action we're planning to take is that over the coming months, we'll update this document for use across HRM tendered construction contracts and new streets and services permits beginning in the summer and fall of sometime in between the summer and fall of 2024. So that work is also ongoing. And this is another item that we were taking a look at being able to make change quickly. The Traffic Control Manual Supplement is something that is under staff responsibility to update as needed. So it's something that we can update relatively quickly in order to include references to the CSA standard. So again, we're trying to find kind of like low-hanging fruit or something we can easily pick and say we can really do this today. It can make a change. So in this next step, the idea is that we do a review of that control manual supplement. We compare it to the CSA standard, and we make changes accordingly, whether it's a reference to the standard. I think it probably is a combination of a reference to the standard as well as specifying some areas of the standard that we want to remind people of very specifically. So not just referring to the standard, but saying, this is how wide something has to be. This is how high it the clear area has to be, really specifying things to kind of make it easily interpretable by anyone who's reading it. So next slide summarizes step number 3. So this is our third area where we found we could probably relatively easily update things and it would have an impact on the construction industry. So the recommendation is to update the Construction Management Planning Administrative Order. So this is Administrative Order 2018-005 ADM. That staff will draft an update to this administrative order and bring it back to council for approval and application in 2025. So this is something this item is really important. It's a bit harder for staff to make changes too quickly because we have to bring it back to regional council to change it. But in the meantime, there is, discretion lent to the engineer in this administrative order to make a determination about how to, what to require in terms of setups in the right of way. So we still have the ability to require appropriate accessibility standards. It's just that it isn't as clearly written. Our goal is to have documents that clearly reference the accessibility requirements rather than an applicant having to go through the process of, consulting with the engineer who then tells them to refer to the standard. They look at the standard and interpret it. They come back to the engineer. And I feel like it's too iterative and there's too much room for kind of miscommunication or loss of information. So the idea is that this administrative order would be updated to come in line with the current version of the CSA standard, but that does take a bit more time because it comes back to regional council. So that's the ultimate solution. And in the meantime, our engineers are aware of this standard and they're applying the standard. In the meantime, it causes some, because it's not clearly written, it involves a bit more back and forth, and I guess there's more room for error, which we want to tighten down on and remove that for clarity and consistency. So I think, Elizabeth, that maybe one more slide. Yeah. So the last slide just says questions, if there are any questions with a question mark.
Okay.
I know that this report is kind of heavy and it probably needs, anyone to take time just to kind of digest it. There's an explanation in there. I guess kind of in closing before questions, we're trying to find ways to make our temporary pedestrian routes more accessible and to do that quickly. So if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about, I could see if there was need for clarification because I feel like this is full of not plain language. It's full of jargon and yeah.
So a question for me to Elizabeth, how much time would we have? So we would, because I noticed there are 2 people that are leaving at 6, so maybe we could prioritize those 2 people if they have something to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So the meeting's scheduled till 6. It is possible to go a little over if we still have quorum. If we don't lose quorum, but we would also, I'd encourage the committee to pass a motion to extend the meeting time past 6 o'clock, but it really depends how many questions members have. But if you wanted to prioritize those who have to leave earlier,
yeah, sure.
I'd encourage you to do that.
Okay, great. So Oliver, Keith, would you have something to share? If you're still there, actually. Yes, you're still there. So would you have something?
I'm still here. Thank you for the presentation, Krista. I'm still actually reviewing the slides on my end right now, trying to digest the material again. So I don't have anything extremely constructive at the moment, unfortunately. But thank you, and I will be looking up this report personally. I know you said it was dry, but I'm doing public policy at the moment, so I find bylaw writing interesting myself. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome, and yeah, we would be happy to receive additional feedback as you have the chance to go through it.
Next to Councillor Paul Russell, would you have something to share before you leave?
I think I do. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Krista, I have recently, 5 minutes ago, sent you an email showing a picture that I took while I was in Toronto recently. Elizabeth, I have also sent you a copy of that. And Elizabeth, I'm wondering if you have received it, and can you share the image that I have sent? Or Krista, you might be able
I'm
to
taking
share.
a look right now.
Okay. So the subject is sidewalk signage in Toronto.
Councillor Russell, I don't think the picture was attached to the email.
No, snowballs.
I don't
Okay,
need
I
to see
do
the picture right now.
It should have been there, Deputy Mayor.
And Liz is saying she has a few pictures that she's taken from around here as well, from the park or from other areas in the city.
But
If anyone's interested.
But I'm specifically looking at this because it relates to temporary sidewalk signage that shows a different format than I have seen around here.
Oh, Paul, I saw it. Sorry, it was at the bottom. I was looking for an attachment. It was embedded in it.
Yes.
Sorry. Thanks, Paul.
And so the difference between what I have seen in Toronto and what I've seen around here is that the signs in Toronto have 2 signposts located closer to the edges of the signs. And so it makes it a lot wider. Give or take, the base of the signs is 2 feet wide. That's an estimate on my part. And what that does is, in the picture that I have sent, is it makes it a lot easier for someone who is visually impaired to notice it, either if they have a seeing eye dog or a cane. And that is something that might be missed when you have a single signpost. So my ask is simply for this type of thing to be given consideration when the report is being prepared. And I see Krista nodding. And Elizabeth, I'm wondering if you've received that yet.
I did receive the picture. I can try sharing it. Just hold on a minute.
So Councillor Russell, just for clarification, I guess we weren't intending to prepare an additional report, but the intention was to gather feedback from this committee to bring back to the TSC.
Right. Part of the feedback would be, this looks to me like it would be a beneficial idea. And I'm wondering if it has been considered here.
The particular configuration has not been considered. This is like this would be like a non-standard setup for Halifax, but we could take it into account, like we could take it as feedback. Just kind of right off the top of my head, I don't think it meets the way that it's set up, doesn't meet the clearance requirements, and also I think it's presenting kind of a tripping hazard, but it looks like it meets other requirements. So I don't want to say, too quickly that dismiss it as an option. I think that creative thinking is needed in this, and I really appreciate having something that is an example. So I really appreciate it, Councillor Russell. Yeah.
Okay. Next on the list is Rochelle. Would you have anything to share?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that presentation, Krista. Well, anyways, I have some questions.
Sure.
Yeah, so I have a question, and then I have like a thought related to the question for consideration moving forward. The question is, what is considered like a requirement, or like what kind of construction project, or how long is it supposed to be for it to require a temporary pedestrian route? Because I mean, there's always construction everywhere all the time, and sometimes there are not these temporary pedestrian routes. And so I'm wondering, like, yeah, what are the rules of that? How is it decided if one has to be involved or not?
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good point. The standard doesn't really address that. Like the CSA standard doesn't specifically say when you have to provide an alternate route. It's more that a safe route has to be provided. So I think that your question is a great one. If someone's used to going a certain way, they may be rerouted to another way. And that way, like the route that they're redirected to should be safe and meet the requirements. That would often be like an existing sidewalk. It might involve crossing the road and then going down an existing sidewalk. And so this report kind of covers that. It does, it is talking about the rerouting. When I think about it, I feel like the biggest challenge is really when you're establishing a temporary route. So it's different than a normal route. It's maybe delineated by barriers that are out in the road, or maybe it's a narrowing of an existing route in order to provide safe passage by like an excavation or something like that. And I think that that's really where we kind of struggle the most to provide for accessibility. And I say we very widely, like it's not even, I think it's sort of like as a society, like, contractors that are working for HRM, contractors that are working for themselves, but they're using the right of way. So there's this pretty big umbrella of people involved in making sure that things are safe, but the municipality is also we're in a regulatory position over this type of stuff that's happening in the right of way. So, we have to take leadership in that and make sure that safe routes are being provided. So I don't mean to dismiss it at all, but it's just, it's a pretty large kind of capture. It's like people doing stuff on the front of their house and they've got buckets of paint and stuff everywhere. So I think that as a kind of a rule, I think whenever a sidewalk is closed intentionally and that a permit is issued for it, there should always be a safe way for the public to get around that. So whether it's rerouting, and it's obvious what the rerouting is, or it's like a temporary routing, but I think that developing criteria around that is a good thing to note, and I'm going to note that down as part of the feedback, to have criteria kind of time-wise and extent-wise. It would be helpful even to HRM staff to have that clearly delineated. Yeah.
Yeah. So related question or note, I suppose. I find that sometimes with oh, sorry, Elizabeth, I feel like you need to say something. It's probably about quorum or something. So you go ahead.
I believe we have lost quorum at this point. And unfortunately, once we've lost quorum for this committee is 6, and we have Glenn, Celine, Rochelle, Councillor Deagle-Gammon, or Deputy Mayor Deagle-Gammon, who has indicated that she has to leave at 6:15, and we have Liz still in the meeting. So I believe that's just 5. So unfortunately, once we lose quorum, we are the meeting will be forced to adjourn. That being said, I think for this committee, it would be a good idea to defer this item to the next meeting. Since this was a rescheduled meeting anyway, I think the next meeting is only in about 2 weeks or so. So Krista, I can follow up with you afterwards regarding your availability. But I don't know if timeline wise you'd be able to attend a future meeting.
Yeah, I would love to attend again and work through the conversation. Just like really quickly before I lose the thought, I think a consideration for this committee is also whether or not you might want to write something to the TSC yourselves. Like, I'm not quite sure kind of procedurally how that kind of thing works. Like if it's best if it comes back through me as feedback, or if the committee would like to write something to represent themselves to the TSC. I'm also not 100% sure what the TSC was looking for from this committee, but to try to bridge that gap, I'm happy to provide, to collect and provide feedback. So I don't know how helpful that is. It's probably not very helpful, but I just wanted to mention that procedurally there might be a way of handling this where there's an official correspondence coming from the committee to the TSC.
We could definitely, the clerk's office can follow up through that or with you on that one. In terms of correspondence is just from an individual, like a community member. So members wouldn't be able to submit correspondence to the TSC on behalf or as, I guess, a representative of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. It's only kind of on an individual basis.
Okay.
But we can touch base with you and explore how we want to get this feedback back to the TSC.
Sure. Thank you. That would be great. Yes. Maybe Deputy Mayor has an idea.
Her hand up.
Thank you very much. I also think that we can, after everybody has been able to respond a little bit, we've got the resources of our Melissa Myers, and Melissa is really good at capturing the conversations as well. And so from the committee, from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, we might be able to submit something to the Transportation Standing Committee as well.
I've made a couple of notes if it's possible to have a look at it in the chat. If you can have a look at it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I will capture that feedback that's in the chat and I will copy it over into my notes so that it isn't lost in the chat.
Yeah, it was a little bit frustrating that we kind of got off topic, but anyway, I've made some notes. If you could copy those, that'd be great.
Yeah. I hope I can. I think I can. somehow.
I can also, I can help you capture that. I know it's a little difficult sometimes with Zoom to like actually copy the text out, but
I've tried to copy it, but I've had a hard time doing it.
yeah, normally it won't let you,
refuses
but
to
we
work
can
for me, so-
transcribe it or figure out
That's
some
it.
way to get that feedback in.
So, Madam Clerk, to Madam Chair, do we need a motion then to defer this item for further discussion at our next meeting? And if so, I'm happy to make that motion.
So we can either put a motion to defer it. I probably would not encourage using a motion now since we've lost quorum.
Oh, that's right.
I can just say
Also-
the committee can just agree to defer the item, and then Chair, you could go over the date of the next meeting and then call for, then the meeting will be adjourned.
Okay, so the date of the next meeting is June 17th, 2024. And our next item is adjournment. I will now call for a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
So moved.
All right, so you can now consider the meeting adjourned.
Okay, so that was that my part? I'll remember that next time, I promise.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye, bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye for
you.
now.
Great job for your first meeting, Celine, getting thrown into it. You did great. You did great.
Thank you.